And today, Governor Newsom announced he has started the process to grant a posthumous pardon for a Petaluma native. Sergeant Richard Allen Penry was awarded the Medal of Honor during the Vietnam War, but he struggled to return to civilian life, and it led to a path of drugs and crime. John Ramos has more on the effort to clear his name and the larger push to address the impacts of war that are so often ignored.
Veterans Day is a time for us to thank those who don the uniform of the U.S. military, and nobody does that better than Petaluma. But even here, many who return are left to feel alone, and one man is making it his mission to change that. The small town of Petaluma is said to have the second largest Veterans Day celebration in the state, and overlooking the annual parade is Penry Park, named for Sergeant Richard Allen Penry, a native son who was awarded the Medal of Honor for what happened one day in a jungle in Vietnam as his company came under attack.
He single-handedly by himself held off a larger enemy force and then single-handedly evacuated people to an opening in the jungle where they can drop a jungle extractor. They said that he didn't just save his platoon, he saved the entire company from an ambush.
Retired Army Major Andrew Lamarquand has taken a special interest in Penry's story, not just for carrying 18 wounded soldiers to safety, but also because of what happened immediately afterwards.
He was just sitting there, Sergeant Penry was sitting on a log by himself, just smoking a cigar, shaking, and just all alone, and didn't want to be by anybody for obvious reasons. And yeah, isolating oneself is one of the first signs of folks that are have experienced some pretty severe trauma.
Sergeant Penry had PTSD, even though the term hadn't been invented yet and no one talked about it much. He returned to a hero's welcome but got no help dealing with the horrors he had experienced. He began using drugs, and 2 years after receiving the Medal of Honor, was arrested on state and federal charges for selling $950 worth of cocaine. His younger sister Patty says, like everyone else, the brother she called Butch had strengths and weaknesses.
I believe the judge that sentenced him also said that he did more for his country in one day than most Americans do in an entire lifetime. So, I mean, I guess it's both those things, right? He is just an ordinary person, but he also did something that was spectacular.
Sergeant Penry died in 1994 at the age of 45, but for the last 2 years, Lamarquand has been working to clear his record. He's petitioned both the governor and the president for posthumous pardons for the crime. But he says he's really doing it for those he served with in Iraq and Afghanistan, many of whom are still suffering in silence.
I started to reach out to a lot of the folks that I served with, and it's very well known now that war trauma causes PTSD, and that PTSD is leading to suicide, high rates of drug addiction, and other, whatever people choose to cope in my generation. And then it became very clear to me that Sergeant Penry never stood a chance.
And I don't think it's fair that we asked people to go do what they're doing right now and then just leave them. Say, okay, you're back. Have fun. Thanks for your service. And then we just leave them without even really thinking about what has occurred to them or what they've seen or done.
Patty says she's thankful that Marquand is one of the few working to create some kind of reintegration strategy that can support those returning from the fields of battle.
I think what he's doing right now is going to help so many people coming back from war. They're going to get what they need.
Because sometimes it's not enough just to offer thanks for someone's service. We need to offer help as well.
The governor's office says it has passed his clemency request on to the state Supreme Court for final authorization. The request for a presidential pardon for the federal charge is still being considered.